My name is Harper. I'm 30 years old, and until last year, I thought my family and I were close. Sure, we had our issues, what family doesn't, but nothing prepared me for what happened at my niece Lily's 6th birthday party. What should have been a joyful celebration turned into a nightmare when I discovered an unauthorized charge of $3,842.20 on my credit card. The betrayal cut deep, but it was their reaction that finally made me see the truth. If you're watching this and have ever been taken advantage of by family, you know that hollow feeling. Before I share how I finally stood up for myself, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe to join our community of survivors. I grew up in a cozy, middle-class neighborhood in Elmhurst, Illinois, just outside of Chicago. Our house wasn't fancy, but my parents, Diana and Robert, always made sure we had what we needed. From the outside, we looked like the perfect American family, with 2 daughters, a dog, and summer barbecues in the backyard. But beneath that picture-perfect surface, there was always an unspoken family dynamic. My younger sister, Tara, was the favorite. My parents would never admit it outright, but their actions spoke volumes. Tara was the wild, free-spirited one who could do no wrong, while I was expected to be the responsible one who would always make the sensible choice. This pattern continued into our adult years. While I worked hard through high school and college, eventually earning my marketing degree with honors from Northwestern, Tara bounced between interests. She enrolled in community college 3 separate times, dropping out each time when things got too boring or too hard. She cycled through jobs like seasonal fashions, retail positions, waitressing, administrative work, never lasting more than 6 months at any of them. Meanwhile, I built a stable career at a digital marketing agency in downtown Chicago. I started as an assistant, worked my way up to account manager, and eventually became the head of client relations. I bought my own condo at 27, maintained a healthy savings account, and always paid my bills on time. I was living the life our parents had always encouraged: stable, responsible, and secure. But for Tara, financial stability seemed like a foreign concept. By the time she was 25, she had maxed out 4 credit cards and was regularly dodging calls from debt collectors. And who did she turn to when those collectors became too persistent? Me, of course. "Harper, I just need $2,000 to get these guys off my back." She'd plead, those familiar tears welling up. "I promise I'll pay you back this time." Despite knowing deep down that I'd never see that money again, I'd transfer the funds. I paid off her debts, helped with rent when she was short, and even co-signed the lease for her apartment when her credit score was too low for her to qualify on her own. Each time my parents would say how wonderful I was for helping your sister through a rough patch. But these weren't isolated rough patches. This was a pattern of financial irresponsibility that continued year after year. And instead of encouraging Tara to become more responsible, my parents enabled her behavior, often contributing to the problem by giving her money whenever she asked, no questions asked. The dynamic shifted slightly when Tara had Lily 6 years ago. Her relationship with Lily's father, Jack, had been brief and tumultuous, ending shortly after Lily was born. Jack paid child support, but it was inconsistent at best. Once again, our parents stepped in to help Tara, watching Lily when Tara needed to work and contributing financially whenever necessary. I adored my niece from the moment she was born. Lily was a bright, imaginative child with her mother's curly auburn hair and a smile that could light up a room. Despite my complicated feelings toward my sister, I made it a priority to be present in Lily's life. I took her to museums, read her stories, and always made sure her birthday and Christmas gifts were extra special. But even with Lily in the picture, the family's expectations of me remained the same. Whenever Tara faced financial difficulties, which was often the unspoken expectation, was that I would step up and help. "You're doing so well," my mother would say. "Your sister is struggling as a single mother. Family helps family." And I did help time and time again. When Tara's car broke down, I paid for the repairs. When Lily needed braces, I contributed to the cost. When Tara wanted to take a certification course that she swore would lead to a better job, I covered the tuition. The course was never completed, and the promised better job never materialized. Through it all, my parents consistently defended Tara's behavior and dismissed my concerns. If I expressed frustration about Tara's spending habits or suggested that perhaps she needed to learn to budget better, I was labeled as selfish and unfeeling. "Not everyone is as naturally organized as you, Harper," my father would say. "Your sister just needs a little more help figuring things out." The years of this dynamic had created a strain between us, though I tried not to let it show, especially around Lily. When the invitation to Lily's 6th birthday party arrived in my email inbox, I saw it as an opportunity for some family healing. I imagined a simple celebration at Tara's apartment with cake games and a few of Lily's friends from kindergarten. I looked forward to seeing my niece's face light up when she opened the gift I had carefully selected for her, a beautiful set of books about young female scientists and a professional art supply kit, as Lily had recently shown an interest in both science and drawing. Little did I know that this birthday party would become the breaking point in our family's long-established dynamic, forcing me to finally confront the uncomfortable truth about my role in our family. 3 weeks before Lily's birthday, I received a colorful digital invitation in my email. It featured animated butterflies and unicorns, Lily's current obsessions, and announced Princess Lily's Royal 6th birthday celebration. It included the date time and a note to RSVP, but strangely no location. I assumed it would be at Tara's apartment, as that's where we'd always celebrated Lily's birthdays in the past. I immediately marked my calendar and spent the next weekend shopping for Lily's gift. I wanted something thoughtful that would nurture her growing interests. After visiting 3 different stores, I finally found the perfect items, a collection of beautifully illustrated children's books about women in science, and a comprehensive art set with professional quality colored pencils, watercolors, and sketchbooks. I spent nearly $200 on these gifts, which was more than I'd planned, but I wanted to make Lily's day special. 2 days before the party, Tara finally texted me the location. I was surprised to see it wasn't her apartment, but an address I didn't recognize. When I looked it up, I discovered it was Fantasy Kingdom, an upscale children's entertainment venue that had opened in Chicago earlier that year. I'd heard about it from colleagues with children. It was known for elaborate themed parties that spared no expense. A flicker of concern crossed my mind, but I brushed it aside, assuming that perhaps Jack was contributing to give his daughter a special celebration. On the day of the party, I dressed in a casual but nice outfit, loaded Lily's carefully wrapped gifts into my car, and drove to the address. As I pulled into the parking lot of Fantasy Kingdom, I couldn't help but notice the luxury vehicles filling the spaces: BMWs, Audis, and even a couple of Teslas. This was definitely not the modest children's party I had anticipated. Walking into the venue, I was immediately overwhelmed by the extravagance before me. The entrance hall had been transformed into an enchanted forest with twinkling lights strung through artificial trees, life-sized unicorn sculptures, and a carpet of what looked like real flower petals leading to the main party room. Professional party planners in fantasy-themed costumes were directing children and adults through the space. Following the path of petals, I entered the main room and nearly gasped audibly. The space had been completely transformed into a princess castle theme, with attention to detail that would impress a Hollywood set designer. A custom ice sculpture of a unicorn stood at the center of a lavish buffet table loaded with gourmet finger foods, elaborate desserts, and a multi-tiered cake that must have been at least 3 feet tall. A professional photographer was capturing every moment, while a face painter, balloon artist, and 3 princess character performers entertained the children. The room was filled with at least 30 kids and their parents, far more than the 10 or so children I had expected. I recognized a few of Lily's friends from previous gatherings, but most of the guests were unfamiliar to me. As I stood taking it all in, I spotted my mother across the room. She was chatting animatedly with another woman, gesturing proudly around the space as if she had arranged everything herself. My father was nearby filming the proceedings with a brand new digital camera I hadn't seen before. Before I could make my way over to my parents, Lily spotted me and came running. "Auntie Harper, you came to my princess party," she exclaimed, throwing her arms around my waist. She was dressed in an elaborate princess costume that looked custom-made, complete with a sparkling tiara and what appeared to be real satin gloves. "I wouldn't miss it for the world, birthday girl," I said, kneeling down to give her a proper hug. "This is quite the celebration. Mommy said I could have the biggest, best party ever because I'm the specialest girl in the world," Lily declared proudly. "Do you like it? We have real princesses and everything." "It's amazing," I replied truthfully, though my mind was racing with questions about how Tara could possibly afford all this. Lily was quickly whisked away by one of the princess performers for a royal dance lesson, and I continued making my way through the crowded room. Several parents stopped me to comment on the extravagance of the party. "This must have cost a fortune," one mother whispered to me. "Does your sister work in finance or something?" "The gift bags contain personalized jewelry for each child," another parent informed me. "I've never seen anything like it." With each comment, my concern grew. Tara was currently working as a receptionist at a hair salon, a job she'd held for only 4 months. There was no way she could afford a celebration of this magnitude. I finally spotted Tara directing a waiter who was carrying a tray of champagne flutes for the adults. She looked stunning in a new designer dress I'd never seen before, her hair and makeup professionally done. When she saw me approaching, a strange expression flitted across her face, something between guilt and defiance, before she quickly composed herself into a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Harper, you made it," she said, giving me a quick, stiff hug. "This is quite the celebration," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "Lily seems to be having the time of her life." "That was the goal," Tara replied with a laugh that sounded slightly forced. "Only the best for my princess." "It's certainly impressive," I said carefully. "This must have been quite the investment." At that comment, Tara's eyes slid away from mine, and she suddenly became very interested in adjusting a nearby centerpiece. "Well, you only turned 6 once. Anyway, I need to check on the cake. Help yourself to champagne." Before I could ask any more questions, she hurried away, weaving through the crowd with surprising agility. Throughout the next hour, I noticed that Tara seemed to be actively avoiding being alone with me. Whenever I approached her, she would suddenly remember some urgent party detail that needed her attention. My parents, on the other hand, were enjoying the celebration without a care in the world. My mother was taking selfies with the princess performers, while my father had moved on from filming to enjoying what appeared to be his 3rd or 4th glass of champagne. Despite my growing unease, I tried to focus on Lily and her obvious joy. Her face lit up during the elaborate princess coronation ceremony, and she squealed with delight when the unicorn performer presented her with a magical gift, a crystal wand that illuminated when she waved it. Seeing her happiness temporarily pushed my concerns to the back of my mind. Whatever the cost, at least my niece was having a wonderful day. As the party progressed, I made my way to the venue's cafe to buy a bottle of water. The activity and noise had given me a slight headache, and I needed a moment of quiet. As I was paying for my drink, my phone buzzed in my purse. It was a banking alert, and what I saw on the screen would change everything. My heart nearly stopped as I stared at my phone screen. There it was in black and white, an alert from my bank app. "Your card ending in 4382 has been charged $3,842 to Niece at Fantasy Kingdom Entertainment." I blinked several times, certain I was misreading the notification, but the numbers remained unchanged. $3,842.20, charged to my credit card, for this party. My first thought was that there had been some mistake, a technical error with the payment system, or perhaps my card information had been stolen. I quickly opened my purse to check for my credit card, rifling through my wallet with increasingly frantic movements. My stomach dropped when I realized my card wasn't there. I stepped outside the main party room to call the bank, but before I could dial, I spotted Tara by the gift table arranging the presents. With my phone still clutched in my hand, I marched over to her, struggling to contain my growing anger and confusion. "Tara, can I speak with you privately for a moment?" I asked, my voice tense but controlled, conscious of the children nearby. She looked up and I could see immediate recognition in her eyes. She knew exactly what this was about. Without a word, she nodded and led me to a small alcove away from the main celebration. Why did I just receive an alert that my credit card was charged almost $4,000 for this party? I asked once we were alone. And why is my card missing from my wallet? I expected denial excuses or at least some show of remorse. What I got instead sent a chill down my spine. Tara shrugged, as if we were discussing something as trivial as a coffee order. We had a family vote and decided you'd pay for it, she said casually. A family vote? I repeated, certain I had misheard. What are you talking about? I never agreed to pay for anything. Mom, Dad and I voted, she clarified, examining her manicured nails. You were outnumbered. We knew you wouldn't agree if we asked directly, so we made the decision for you. The casual way she admitted to this betrayal left me momentarily speechless. When I found my voice again, it was shaking with anger. You stole my credit card, I stated flatly. That's theft, Tara. She rolled her eyes. Don't be so dramatic. I borrowed your card from your purse during Sunday dinner at Mom and Dad's last weekend. You were helping Dad with the grill, and your purse was just sitting there in the hallway. I felt sick as I realized how calculated this had been. Does that make it better that you planned this theft in advance? It's not theft when it's family, she countered, an edge entering her voice. You can afford it, Harper. You make 6 figures, you have savings, and you don't have a child to support. Meanwhile, I'm trying to give my daughter a birthday she'll remember forever. What's the big deal? The big deal, I said, struggling to keep my voice down, is that you made a decision to spend my money, a significant amount of my money, without my knowledge or consent. That's not okay under any circumstances. Well, it's done now, Tara said with finality. The party's already happening. Are you really going to make a scene and ruin Lily's special day? And there it was, the manipulation tactic my family had used for years. Any objection I raised would make me the villain, the one who ruined a child's happiness. I looked past Tara to where Lily was twirling in her princess dress, surrounded by friends, her face glowing with joy. I felt trapped. We'll discuss this after the party, I said finally. But this isn't over, Tara. Whatever, she replied dismissively. Just remember that everyone here thinks you're the wonderful, generous aunt who made this all possible. Try to act the part, would you? She walked away, rejoining the party as if our conversation had never happened. I remained in the alcove, trying to process what had just occurred. My own sister had stolen my credit card, charged thousands of dollars to it, and showed absolutely no remorse. And apparently my parents were complicit in this scheme. As if on cue, my mother appeared beside me, a glass of champagne in her hand. There you are, Harper. Isn't this just magical? Tara did such an amazing job planning everything. I looked at her, wondering if she would at least show some guilt over what they had done. Did you know about the charge on my credit card? I asked directly. Instead of shame, her expression showed mild annoyance. Oh, Tara told you already. We were going to wait until after the party. But yes, we thought it made sense for you to contribute in this way. Contribute? I echoed incredulously. Mom taking my card without permission and charging nearly $4,000 isn't a contribution, it's theft. My mother's face hardened. That's a terrible thing to say. We're family, and frankly, it's about time you stepped up more for your sister and niece. You've always been so selfish about your money. Her words hit me like a physical blow. Selfish. After years of financial support, emergency loans that were never repaid, co-signing leases, and countless other forms of assistance. I need to get some air, I said, turning away before I said something I couldn't take back. I spent the remainder of the party in a state of shocked autopilot. I smiled for photos, helped serve cake, and made appropriate comments about the presents. I did it all for Lily, who was innocent in this whole mess. But inside, I was seething with a mixture of anger, betrayal, and dawning realization. As I mechanically went through the motions of the celebration, I pulled out my phone and began checking my recent credit card statements. What I found made my blood run cold. There weren't just charges from today, there were multiple smaller, unauthorized purchases over the past few months. A clothing store charge of $340, a spa day for $520, various restaurant bills ranging from $80 to over $200. All this time, someone in my family had been using my card without my knowledge, and given what I now knew, I had little doubt who was responsible. This wasn't just a one-time birthday splurge, this was a pattern of financial abuse that had been going on right under my nose. The party finally wound down around 5 o'clock, with exhausted children being collected by their parents, each clutching elaborate goodie bags that I now knew had been purchased with my money. I helped with some cursory cleanup, my mind already made up about what needed to happen next. I waited until the last guest had left before confronting my family. It was time for a long overdue conversation. After the last guest departed, only my family remained in the now messy party room. Staff members were beginning the cleanup process, and Lily had fallen asleep in my father's arms, exhausted from the excitement of the day. It was the perfect moment to address what had happened without upsetting my niece. "We need to talk," I said firmly, gathering my parents and Tara near the emptied gift table. "I want to understand exactly what happened with my credit card." My father shifted Lily to his other shoulder, looking uncomfortable but not particularly concerned. "It's not a big deal, Harper. We knew you'd want to do something special for Lily." "If you thought that, why not ask me?" I countered. "Why take my card without permission and plan all this without my knowledge?" "Because you would have said no," Tara interjected bluntly. "Or you would have suggested something boring and educational instead of what Lily actually wanted." "You don't know what I would have said because you never asked," I replied, struggling to keep my voice even. "And even if I had said no, that would have been my right. It's my money." My mother made a dismissive gesture with her hand. "Always so dramatic about your money, Harper. It's just money and family helps family. You've always had everything so easy, good grades, good job, good pay. Your sister has struggled. The least you could do is help give your niece a birthday to remember." "I have helped," I said, disbelief coloring my voice. "I've helped countless times over the years. I've given Tara money for rent, for car repairs, for Lily's school supplies. I've covered emergency medical bills. I've paid off credit card debt. And I've never complained about doing it because I love you all. But this taking my card without permission crosses a line." Tara rolled her eyes. "It's not like we emptied your savings account. It's a charge on a credit card. You can pay it off over time if you need to." That's when something inside me snapped. The casual way she discussed potentially putting me into debt, as if my financial stability was of no importance, made me realize just how little respect my family had for my boundaries. "This isn't the first unauthorized charge, is it?" I asked, looking between my parents and sister. I checked my statements. "There have been multiple charges over the last few months that I didn't make." A moment of tense silence followed before my mother spoke. "We've had to borrow your card information a few times for necessities," she admitted, not meeting my eyes. "Necessities," I repeated, "like a $500 spa day, designer clothes, dinner at Le Bernardin." "Self-care is a necessity," Tara shot back defensively. "And I needed professional clothes for job interviews. As for the dinner that was Mom and Dad's anniversary, they deserve nice things too." I looked at my parents in shock. "You used my card for your anniversary dinner without telling me you both have your own credit cards?" My father had the decency to look somewhat embarrassed, but my mother remained defiant. "Your father and I have done everything for you girls. We raised you, educated, you supported you. A nice dinner once a year isn't too much to ask in return. Asking would have been fine," I exclaimed, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "I would have happily treated you to a nice anniversary dinner if you had asked. But you didn't ask, you took. There's a world of difference. You're being selfish, my mother said coldly. After everything we've done for you. That word again, selfish. The label they'd attached to me whenever I attempted to establish any kind of boundary. It had been effective for years, instantly triggering my guilt and causing me to back down. But not this time. No, I said firmly. Setting financial boundaries isn't selfish. Taking someone else's money without permission is selfish. What you've all been doing is financial abuse, and it stops now. Financial abuse? Tara scoffed. Don't be ridiculous. We're family. Being family doesn't give you the right to steal from me, I replied. And that's what this is, theft. I could actually press charges if I wanted to. The mention of legal consequences seemed to break through their defensive wall, if only momentarily. My father's expression shifted to concern, and even Tara looked briefly uncertain. You wouldn't do that to your own family, my mother said, but her voice held a note of question. No, I wouldn't, I agreed. But I will be disputing this charge with the bank, and I will be taking steps to ensure this never happens again. The conversation devolved from there. Tears from Tara, accusations from my mother, awkward attempts at peacekeeping from my father. The familiar family dynamic playing out as it always had with me, eventually expected to concede for the sake of peace. But as I stood there watching them react with indignation rather than remorse, something fundamental shifted inside me. I saw with sudden clarity the pattern that had defined our relationship for years, my family taking and taking while I gave and gave all, under the guise of family obligation. I need to go, I said, finally cutting off my mother's tirade about family loyalty. I've heard enough. So that's it, Tara demanded. You're just going to walk out and leave us with this mess. She gestured around at the party debris. The mess you created? I asked quietly. Yes, I think it's time you dealt with your own messes for once. I turned and walked away, ignoring my mother's calls to come back and discuss this reasonably. There was nothing reasonable about what they had done, and for once, I wasn't going to pretend otherwise. As I drove home, tears streamed down my face. I felt an overwhelming mixture of anger, betrayal, grief, and surprisingly relief. For years, I had suspected that my family saw me more as a resource than a person with my own needs and boundaries. Now I had undeniable proof, and painful as it was, there was a certain freedom in that clarity. By the time I reached my condo, my sadness had crystallized into resolve. I pulled into my parking space, took a deep breath, and made a decision. This pattern of financial abuse had to end, and I would be the one to end it, even if it meant fundamentally changing my relationship with my family. The drive home was a blur of tears and traffic lights. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly, my knuckles turned white, and my mind raced with painful realizations about my family dynamics. By the time I reached my condo and closed the door behind me, I felt utterly drained. I slumped onto my living room couch, still in my party clothes, and stared blankly at the wall. The beautiful space I'd worked so hard for, the modern furniture I'd saved for the artwork I'd carefully selected, suddenly felt hollow. What was the point of building a stable life if the people I loved most saw it only as a resource to exploit? My phone buzzed repeatedly with texts and calls from my family, but I couldn't bring myself to look at them yet. Instead, I called the one person I knew would give me honest perspective without judgment. My best friend, Amanda. Harper. How was the birthday party? Amanda answered cheerfully. As soon as I heard her voice, the emotional dam broke. Between sobs, I explained what had happened: the unauthorized charge, my family's casual admission, the discovery of previous purchases, and their complete lack of remorse. They acted like I was being unreasonable. I concluded, my voice hoarse from crying. Like I'm somehow the bad guy for being upset about thousands of dollars charged to my card without my permission. There was a moment of stunned silence before Amanda responded, her voice firm. Harper, what they did wasn't just wrong, it was illegal. That's credit card fraud. And the way they're manipulating you about it is emotional abuse on top of financial abuse. But they're my family, I said weakly, voicing the thought that had kept me trapped in this dynamic for so long. Listen to me, Amanda said gently but firmly. This isn't love, Harper. Love doesn't exploit. Love doesn't steal. Love doesn't make you feel guilty for having boundaries. What they're doing isn't love, it's exploitation. Her words hit me like a physical force. I'd spent years justifying my family's behavior, making excuses for them, and blaming myself for not being generous enough. But hearing it characterized as exploitation from someone outside the situation made me see it with new clarity. You're right, I said quietly. I've been enabling this for years, haven't I? You've been trying to help people you love, Amanda corrected. That comes from a good place. But they've taken advantage of that goodness, and it's okay to say enough is enough. After talking with Amanda for nearly an hour, I felt stronger and more resolved. When we hung up, I knew what I needed to do. It wouldn't be easy, but it was necessary, not just for my financial health, but for my emotional well-being. I spent the rest of the evening methodically documenting every unauthorized transaction I could find on my accounts. The total was shocking, over $6,000 in the past year alone, not including today's party charge. Each line item felt like another small betrayal. The spa day charged when I was on a business trip to Boston. The expensive dinner at a restaurant I'd mentioned wanting to try. The clothing purchases that mysteriously appeared when I was working late. As I created a spreadsheet of these transactions, I alternated between tears and anger. How had I not noticed sooner? But I knew the answer. I trusted my family implicitly and rarely scrutinized my statements beyond making sure I could cover the monthly payment. They had used that trust against me. Around midnight, emotionally exhausted but determined, I began taking concrete actions to protect myself. First, I called my bank's 24-hour fraud line and reported the unauthorized charges, specifically the recent party charge. The representative was sympathetic and guided me through the process of disputing the transactions. Ms. Jenkins, I see here that your mother, Diana Jenkins, is listed as an authorized user on this account, the bank representative said. Was she involved in these transactions? I felt a fresh wave of betrayal. I had never added my mother as an authorized user. No, I didn't authorize that. She must have added herself somehow. After answering security questions and verifying my identity, I had my mother removed as an authorized user and requested new cards be issued with new numbers. I also added additional security protections to all my accounts. Next, I systematically went through every automatic payment I had set up for Tara or my parents. Tara's cell phone that I'd been paying for since she claimed she couldn't afford it. The streaming services I'd added her to as a temporary help that had somehow become permanent. The monthly transfer to my parents that was supposed to help with Lily's education fund, but that I now suspected went elsewhere. One by one, I canceled them all. By the time I finally went to bed around 2 a.m, I had sent a detailed email to my family outlining the unauthorized charges, the steps I had taken to secure my accounts, and my expectations moving forward. The email was firm, but not cruel. I made it clear that I loved them, but could no longer tolerate financial exploitation. As I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I felt a strange mixture of grief and liberation. I mourned the family relationship I had thought we had, while simultaneously feeling the weight of years of financial manipulation lifting from my shoulders. Whatever happened next would be difficult, but for the first time in years, I felt like I was standing up for myself, rather than simply accommodating everyone else's needs. With that thought, I finally drifted into an exhausted sleep, knowing that tomorrow would bring the fallout of my actions, but feeling more at peace with myself than I had in years. The response from my family was swift and furious. I awoke to dozens of missed calls, voicemails, and text messages, each more indignant than the last. How could you do this to your own family? After everything we've done for you. Lily is crying because the credit card company called the party venue. The last message was a particular knife twist, using my niece's distress as a weapon against me. But this time, I recognized the manipulation tactic for what it was. The venue had already been paid. Any calls from the credit card company would have been to the account holder me, not to the venue. Lily wouldn't have known anything about it. My mother left 3 voicemails each, progressively more emotional, culminating in tearful accusations about how I was tearing the family apart over money. My father's single voicemail was more subdued but equally guilt-inducing. "Your mother is very upset, Harper. I think you should reconsider what you're doing here." Tara took her outrage public posting vague but pointed comments on social media about people who claim to love you but abandon you when you need them most. Several relatives and family friends commented with supportive messages, having heard only her side of the story. I didn't respond to any of it. Instead, I followed the advice in an article about financial abuse that I had read the night before. Document everything, maintain clear boundaries, and don't engage with attempts to manipulate you back into the abusive pattern. I forwarded the most threatening messages to my email for documentation, then muted the conversations. I needed space to think clearly without the constant barrage of guilt and accusations. That afternoon, I received a call from my bank confirming that they were investigating the disputed charges. They had already reversed the party charge temporarily while they completed their review. The representative also confirmed that my mother had indeed been added as an authorized user 6 months ago. Apparently, she had called pretending to be me and had known enough personal information to pass the security verification. It was a sobering reminder of how vulnerable we can be to those who know us intimately. I took the additional step of consulting with Maria, a friend who worked as a corporate lawyer. While her specialty wasn't fraud cases, she offered some valuable advice about protecting myself going forward. "What they did meets the legal definition of fraud," she confirmed after hearing my story. "You have every right to dispute the charges and take steps to protect your finances. And Harper, changing your passwords and securing your accounts isn't just recommended, it's necessary." Following Maria's advice, I spent the weekend implementing stronger security measures across all my accounts. I changed every password, set up 2-factor authentication wherever possible, placed credit freezes with the major bureaus, and even rekeyed the locks on my condo after remembering that my parents had a spare key. The bank completed their investigation surprisingly quickly, permanently reversing the party charge and several of the other unauthorized transactions I had identified. They couldn't go back more than 90 days, but even that partial refund was significant. Throughout this process, the emotional toll was immense. I fluctuated between certainty that I was doing the right thing and crushing guilt about abandoning my family. Years of conditioning had left me vulnerable to their particular brand of emotional manipulation. But each time doubt crept in, I returned to the spreadsheet documenting their financial violations and reminded myself that healthy relationships don't involve theft and deception. 2 weeks after the birthday party incident, I received a formal letter from the bank confirming that my dispute claim had been approved. They had determined that the charges were indeed fraudulent and had been made without my authorization. The letter included language about my right to press criminal charges if I chose to do so, though I had no intention of taking that step against my own family, regardless of what they had done. Around the same time, my family's approach shifted from outright hostility to attempted reconciliation, on their terms, of course. My mother left a voicemail suggesting we put this unpleasantness behind us and go back to being a family again. My father sent an email saying he understood I was upset, but that family has to come first. Tara sent a text with a photo of Lily looking sad, captioned only with, "She misses her aunt." These were the same tactics that had worked countless times before, tugging at my heartstrings and making me question my own boundaries. But this time, I saw them for what they were: attempts to pull me back into an unhealthy dynamic without any real accountability or change. I responded with a single email to all three of them. "I love you all, and I especially love Lily. But I cannot and will not return to a relationship where my boundaries are not respected. When you are ready to acknowledge what happened, take responsibility for your actions, and commit to building a healthier relationship, moving forward, I will be here. Until then, I need some space." Their reactions were predictable. My mother was hurt, my father was disappointed, and Tara was angry. Extended family members began to reach out, having heard various versions of the story, most of which cast me as the villain who had abandoned my struggling sister and heartbroken niece over a simple misunderstanding about money. I didn't defend myself or try to correct the narrative. Those who truly knew me would reserve judgment, and those who didn't matter less to me than my own well-being. The hardest part was missing Lily. I sent her birthday card with a note telling her how much I loved her, and that none of what was happening was her fault. I arranged for her books and art supplies to be delivered directly to her, though I later learned from a mutual acquaintance that Tara had initially refused to give them to her as a way to punish me. Eventually, the same acquaintance confirmed that Lily had received the gifts and loved them. As weeks turned into months, I focused on healing and building a stronger support system outside my family. I joined a support group for people recovering from family financial abuse, where I met others with surprisingly similar stories. I deepened my friendships with people who respected my boundaries. I even started dating again after a long period of focusing solely on my career and family obligations. The distance gave me perspective I had never had before. I began to see patterns in my family's behavior that went back to my childhood: the expectation that I would always be the responsible one, the assumption that my success was a resource for everyone else to draw upon, the subtle message that having boundaries made me selfish. With the help of a therapist, I began seeing I worked through the guilt and grief that had initially overwhelmed me. I learned to recognize that standing up for myself wasn't selfish. It was necessary and healthy. And most importantly, I discovered that I had value beyond what I could provide for others. For nearly a year, my contact with my family was minimal. Occasional text exchanges about practical matters, a brief phone call on major holidays, but nothing substantial. It was the longest we had ever gone without regular contact, and while it was painful, it was also healing. And then, exactly 1 year after Lily's infamous birthday party, they showed up at my door. It was a Saturday morning, and I was enjoying a quiet moment with coffee and a book on my balcony when the doorbell rang. Opening the door, I found my sister Tara standing there with my parents hovering anxiously behind her. "We need to talk," Tara said without preamble. For a moment, I considered closing the door. A year of minimal contact had been good for me. I had found a peace I hadn't known was possible. My career had flourished without the constant drain of family emergencies. My savings had recovered from the years of financial exploitation. I had even started volunteering at a financial literacy program for women leaving abusive relationships, finding purpose in helping others avoid the patterns I had experienced. But curiosity won out, and I stepped back to let them enter. "I wasn't expecting you," I said neutrally, leading them to my living room. As we settled awkwardly on the couches, I noticed how they all looked different somehow. My mother seemed smaller, less commanding than I remembered. My father's hair had more gray. Tara looked tired in a way that makeup couldn't quite conceal. "How's Lily?" I asked, breaking the uncomfortable silence. Despite everything, I had never stopped caring about my niece. She's good, Tara replied, her voice softer than her initial greeting. She's with Jack this weekend. She still talks about you. I nodded, waiting for them to explain their unexpected visit. My mother cleared her throat. Harper, we've come because... She hesitated, glancing at my father. Because we need your help, Tara finished bluntly. And yes, it's about money. I felt a familiar sinking feeling. Had nothing changed? Was this just another attempt to access my resources? I remained silent, waiting for the full explanation. I lost my job 3 months ago, Tara continued. The salon closed. I've been looking for work, but nothing's come through yet. I'm behind on rent, and Lily needs new school clothes and... She trailed off, then straightened her shoulders. Mom and Dad have been helping, but they can't cover everything. We thought since it's been a year, maybe you'd be willing to help again. We're family, my mother added, as if that explained everything. Families support each other through hard times. The familiar refrain hit differently now. After a year of therapy and reflection, I could see the manipulation that had always been there. The assumption that family meant unlimited access to my resources without accountability or reciprocity. Before I respond, I said carefully, I'd like to know if any of you have something to say about what happened last year. They exchanged glances, clearly unprepared for this question. That's all in the past, my father said dismissively. We should focus on the present situation. The past matters when the patterns haven't changed, I replied. What happened last year wasn't just about money. It was about trust, respect, and boundaries. Fine, Tara said, an edge entering her voice. We shouldn't have used your card without asking. It was wrong. Is that what you want to hear? But you didn't have to blow everything up the way you did. You embarrassed us with the credit card company. You cut us off completely. You've barely spoken to us for a year. You owe the family for that embarrassment. I stared at her, momentarily speechless. After everything that had happened, she still believed I owed them. I don't owe you anything, I said finally, my voice calm but firm. What happened last year wasn't just an unauthorized charge. It was the culmination of years of financial exploitation. You took my card without permission. You charged thousands of dollars to it. When confronted, you showed no remorse. In fact, you defended your actions. And when I took steps to protect myself, you turned family and friends against me with half-truths and manipulations. That's not fair, my mother interjected. We never meant to hurt you. Intentions don't change impact, I replied, using a phrase I had learned in therapy. Whether you meant to hurt me or not, you did hurt me deeply. And instead of acknowledging that hurt and working to repair the relationship, you're here a year later, asking for more money without any real accountability. So you're just going to let your sister and your niece struggle? My father asked, anger coloring his voice. What kind of person does that make you? In the past, that question would have cut me to the core, triggering the guilt and sense of obligation that had kept me trapped in the unhealthy dynamic for so long. But I had done too much work on myself to fall back into that pattern. It makes me a person with healthy boundaries, I answered steadily. And my boundaries are not the reason for Tara's financial struggles. Her choices are. Tara's face flushed with anger. Easy for you to say from your perfect life with your perfect job. Not everyone has it as easy as you do. My life isn't perfect and my success didn't come easily, I countered. I worked hard for everything I have. I made responsible choices even when they were difficult. And I'm willing to help you, Tara, but not unconditionally and not without changes. This seemed to catch them all by surprise. They had clearly expected either immediate capitulation or outright refusal. What kind of changes? Tara asked cautiously. First, a genuine acknowledgement of what happened last year. not just the unauthorized charges, but the pattern of financial exploitation that preceded it. I began. Second, financial counseling. I'll pay for sessions with a financial advisor who can help you create a budget and plan for the future. Third, transparency. If I'm going to help financially, I need to know exactly where the money is going with receipts and documentation. My mother looked offended. You don't trust us? No, I don't. I agreed simply. Trust is earned, and you've broken mine repeatedly. It will take time and consistent effort to rebuild it. A tense silence filled the room. I could see them processing my conditions, weighing their pride against their need. Finally, Tara spoke. And if we agree to these conditions, what kind of help are you offering? I'll help you cover the essential bills, rent, utilities, Lily's necessities for a defined period while you look for work, I said. Not indefinitely, and not for luxuries. And I'll do it through direct payments to the landlord and utility companies, not by giving you cash or access to my accounts. My terms were clear and firm, reflecting both my willingness to support my family and my unwillingness to be taken advantage of again. The ball was in their court. What followed was an hour of difficult conversation. There were tears from my mother, anger from my father, and a mix of resentment and grudging acceptance from Tara. Old patterns of guilt and manipulation surfaced repeatedly, but I remained steady in my boundaries. Eventually, after much discussion and several near walkouts, we reached an agreement. I would help with essential expenses for 3 months, during which time Tara would work with a financial counselor and actively pursue employment. My parents would step back from financial involvement and support Tara's efforts toward independence rather than enabling her dependency. As they prepared to leave, my mother paused at the door. Will you come see Lily soon? She really does miss you. I'd like that, I said sincerely. But I need to know that my relationship with her won't be used as leverage or withheld when I maintain boundaries. My mother looked as if she wanted to object, but she simply nodded. After they left, I sat alone in my living room, processing what had just occurred. There had been no grand moment of realization from my family, no dramatic apologies or promises of complete transformation. Just small steps toward healthier patterns, grudging in some ways, but steps nonetheless. Over the following months, those small steps continued. Tara found a job at a marketing firm's reception desk, not her dream position, but stable work with growth potential. She attended financial counseling sessions initially with reluctance, but gradually with increasing engagement. My parents, while never fully acknowledging their role in enabling unhealthy patterns, began to respect the boundaries I had established. Our family gatherings resumed, though, with a different dynamic than before. I was no longer the automatic solution to every problem, no longer expected to sacrifice my financial well-being for everyone else's comfort. When I did choose to help, like contributing to Lily's school trip fund or offering to help my parents upgrade their aging appliances, it was received with genuine gratitude rather than entitled expectation. The most significant change came 6 months after our confrontation, when Tara called to tell me she had just received a promotion at work. I wanted you to be the first to know, she said, an unfamiliar pride in her voice. And Harper, I've been saving for Lily's next birthday, a reasonable celebration that I can actually afford. It was a small moment, but it represented a profound shift, my sister taking responsibility for her finances rather than expecting others to solve her problems. For the first time in our adult relationship, I felt like we were moving toward being equals rather than locked in the helper-helped dynamic that had defined us for so long. My relationship with my family may never be perfect. The patterns established over decades don't disappear overnight. There are still moments of tension, occasional attempts to test boundaries, and lingering resentments on all sides. But we're building something healthier than what we had before, a relationship based on mutual respect rather than exploitation. As for me, the journey has transformed more than just my family relationships. I've discovered a strength I never knew I had: the strength to stand firm in my worth, to expect respect, and to walk away from situations that diminish me. I've learned that loving someone doesn't mean allowing them to take advantage of you, and that setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's necessary for genuine connection. The financial abuse I experienced at the hands of those I loved most left deep wounds, but in healing from them, I found a freedom I had never known was possible. Freedom from guilt, from obligation, from the crushing weight of others' expectations and demands. Freedom to build the life I want on my own terms, offering help from a place of choice rather than coercion. If you're watching this and recognizing familiar patterns in your own relationships, know that you deserve better. Your resources, whether financial, emotional, or temporal, belong to you first. Sharing them should be a choice made freely, not an obligation extracted through guilt or manipulation. The path to changing these patterns isn't easy, but the peace waiting on the other side is worth every difficult step. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members? What helped you stay strong when they pushed back? Share your experiences in the comments, and if this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to support more content like this. Remember, standing up for yourself isn't selfish. It's the foundation of healthy relationships and true generosity. Thank you for being part of this community, and I wish you strength on your own journey toward financial and emotional freedom.